grab your Bibles and turn to the book of Isaiah. We are in Isaiah chapter 9. It's a verse that we have read or heard a lot during this Christmas season. So I want to kind of introduce a new word. Maybe it's not new to some of you, but it's a new word I want to make sure we talk about because I want to use it in the next couple of weeks, and I think it's important. And we sang it in one of the songs. It's the word incarnate or incarnation. And it's the word that talks about to put on flesh, to become man. And that's what we talk about when we say the incarnation. It's the idea of Jesus becoming humanity. He is putting on the human body. He is coming down from God himself to be fully man as well as fully God. So when we talk about the incarnation, that's what we're referring to, the idea of being born. This is what Christmas is all about. Christmas is about the incarnation. And so really, for these next few weeks, we're going to kind of begin to unpack a little bit of what that means. Because we call this the Advent season, and Advent simply means coming season. And so we want to talk a little bit about what that is. So we're really going to kind of break down Advent, and we're going to do it this way. We're going to talk this morning about what's the purpose of Advent. Next week, we're going to jump into the second Advent. There's more than one. Thirdly, we're going to do the mission of Advent, and then the fourth one is going to be the salvation of Advent. So much we talk about this season, and we get so caught up. We like the idea of Jesus. We talk about Christmas so often, and we get to this season, and at least for me, it's kind of become the same thing I've done for how many years I've done this. It's Christmas season. Okay, John's not here. I can say this. I hope there's snow. I don't like brown Christmases. I'm not allowed to pray for snow, and that's okay. I won't do that. We hope for snow. We hope for peace on earth. We hope for goodwill and cheer to men. We sing the song, right? And we think of the Christmas songs, and we spend time with family. We open presents, and it's all about Jesus. That's just kind of how I approach this thing. And say, we should probably focus more on Jesus. And we think about that. But so often we think about it as it's just the historical event. And how many thousands of years ago Jesus came and he became a baby, and it was really important, and we really like that. Yay, But I don't know if I don't think I can overstate this. That the incarnation changed everything. It changed everything. There is nothing in our life or in the entire cosmos of everything that the incarnation has not changed. It has not altered in some way. This is one of the most monumental shifts in history. When God himself says, I'm going to become like you for the sake of you. That's what the incarnation is about. Athanasius is an old church father. And he says it like this. He says the purpose of the incarnation, the purpose of Advent is to bring the corruptible, the sinful, to incorruptibility, to God himself, to bring us to him. And so often I'm just reminded that maybe I need to take a step back and to look at this kind of with fresh, new eyes. Because I'm guilty of slipping into the same old adage again and again about Christmas and making this. And I was reminded this morning, so I got up and I made my pot of coffee, and my youngest daughter, who's 5, we opened the drapes to our backyard, and the sunrise was coming up. And I just did this thing. I went and got my coffee, and she gets up and she goes to the window and she goes, wow. And I'm like, what's going on? Maybe we have lots of deer in our backyard. Who knows? What's going on? She goes, the sunrise looks like the northern lights. And it did. And I stopped and I walked right by. I opened the shades, walked right by, and I looked back there, and there was purples and oranges and whites and reds and all this beautiful color just rising up. And here is my 5-year-old girl. She's just staring. That's amazing. And it was just a check for me. It didn't really fit with my sermon, to boot. The Advent is something that we can't get used to looking at. That I don't want to get used to just, it's another Christmas season, another birth of Jesus, another nativity, another manger story, another reading of this. No, this changed everything. This is at the beginning of the incarnation, at the core of the beginning of Jesus coming to earth is Easter. We make a really big deal about Easter and the resurrection and the death of Christ. At the core of Easter at the core of Christmas is Easter's glory. Easter is coming. One of the gifts that the wise men brought to Mary, we saw we have the gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Myrrh has one use, and that's for burials. That's really interesting to think about, that in the midst of this, oh, Joel, you're going to make this all somber. No, this is the beautiful news. That in the beginning of this is Jesus came for us to bring us to where we need to be. So let's dive in. Isaiah chapter 9. We're going to skip a little bit. We're going to skip verse 1 just because it has a lot of names. And what verse 1 is really detailing is that there is a need for something to happen. Isaiah, if you read it, is a book, has a lot of gloominess to it because it is the constant downfall and sinfulness and darkness of the people of Israel. They have been lost. They have been sinning. They have been carried off into captivity. And Isaiah gets to watch it happen. It's a horrible thing to watch the people of God be carried off. But Isaiah is also, in the midst of his book, a book filled with such immense hope because he knows that this isn't the end. That this isn't only what's going to happen. This isn't the end of the story. There is something coming. There is rescue coming. There is salvation coming. So it says, if you skip to verse 2, which is where we're going to start, it says, the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Here's the turn. You're starting to see the turn a little bit, right? Those who dwelt in a land of deep darkness, on them the light has shone. Something is shifting. Something is happening. This is the story. We're going to read a little bit, and in a few verses we're going to see the really familiar verse where it says, unto us a child is given. This is the verse that's starting about this entire section of we have walked in darkness and now a new dawn has lit up. A new dawn has come. Something has brought light into our dark world and it has changed everything. So often we just want to read this passage and we think of a light switch where it's like click, an instant light, and that changes it. But it's more than that. The purpose, the whole point of Advent, and this is my first point of my 2-point sermon for those who take notes from you, Mariel, is that the Advent happened because it was necessary. It happened because it was necessary. So you guys know what a meme is, right? Online? They have one online I saw a long time ago, and it's a guy who's got this little, those little pistol squirt guns. And I looked for one, but we do not have one in our house. I was going to bring one, and I was going to use it and be like, shoot people who fall asleep, right? No. But I don't have one. I had a really big one, but I thought that might be kind of mean. And they have this little pistol squirt gun, and it's a picture of him, and he's pointing it at the sun, and he's squeezing the trigger, and it says, our actions trying to conquer sin. And I thought, that's kind of cool. That's kind of a neat way. It's as prevalent as a squirt gun trying to shoot out the sun. And so I'm imagining this, it's like, how would this qualify? How would this transfer over to this? And so I'm thinking, well, maybe it's ideal. Have you ever guys tried to put out a fire with something little? Like maybe that's just me. Like you want to see as a guy, maybe that's just a guy thing. We just are required to play with fire growing up. But you can just imagine you try to see what you can put out and you can see what you can squirt in them. And I'm imagining this fire that's kind of big, and I have the little tiny thing, and I'm just trying to get rid of it, trying to stamp it out. Like, this isn't good. It kind of got away from me. I remember when I was little, one of our neighbors had a fire and it got caught in the cornfield and it got really, really bad. So you kind of get nervous about stuff for a while, but you see this little and you're trying to put it out and you're trying to get rid of it and you're trying to make sure it goes away and you're getting kind of nervous because it's like it's getting bigger and I can't control what's going on. And then you look up, and this is where my mind's going. And it's not just a little fire anymore. It's consuming my house. It's consuming my house. It's got everything in there. It's got my garage. It's got my stalls. It's got every part of my life in there. That's who I am. And I'm just watching. I can't imagine. You guys have those dreams where you just can't do what you want to do? Like when you're running away from someone and you're mad at yourself because like what's going on? You've trained for this. You're faster than this, right? And you're watching it just consume it, and I'm sitting here with this stupid little water pistol, and I'm trying to put it out all I got, and I'm going as fast as I can, and I run out of water, and like, what do you do? And it's this overwhelming sense of loss and of heartache. You guys have those dreams where you wake up and you're just terrified of what might have been? Like this is what I'm imagining with this whole thing. I can't do anything about this. There is nothing in my power. There's no amount of water. I go try to find the water, it won't work. What am I going to do? There's nothing to do. There's nothing I can do. But to watch someone come and to actually do what I can't. Because this is what was necessary, because that's sin. Sin is something that always starts off with something I think we can control. It's something that I think I can manage. I think this is something I'm just a part of. Everyone has this. Everyone does this. Everyone has this in their lives. It's just a part of who we are. And it's like, this is just mine. It's not a weird one. It's not really that bad. I'm just going to kind of have it and kind of deal with it. I'm going to kind of keep it quenched. I'm going to try to get rid of it as best I can. But sometimes it's just life, and I'm just doing the best I can. Right? But the problem is that's not actually what sin is. We think we're playing with this little thing, and really our house is on fire. The entire home is up in flames. Everything is going. And to actually realize what sin is, to stare at sin and realize this is cosmic treason of the king of the world, of the king of the universe, to say for just this second, God, for just a second, I'm going to take you off the throne and I'm going to put what I want right here. I'm going to put you right back. But for just a second, can you just not notice for just like 2 minutes? That's what sin is, and it's in consuming the entirety of who we are. And we can't do anything about it. As much as we'd like to think we can, as much as we want to think we can't. This is where Isaiah is talking about. This is what he's writing to the people of Israel, the people of Judah, who have been carried off. They have been captured by Babylon. Babylon and Judah. They've been brought off. They've been carried off. The house is gone. And he's watching this. But there is something coming. This is Advent, the coming. There's something to be coming. There's someone who's going to rescue us. That's what Isaiah is about. There is going to be someone who's going to come and do what we can't do. To save us not from captivity, but to save us from ourselves and our sin. To save us from a bigger problem. It's not just from the things that I think I need. He saves us from the things that we desperately need. Not the things of physical salvation, but the things of eternal salvation. This is the coming of someone who's going to do something beyond our understanding. We have been in darkness. These people are in darkness. There's something that we can't see. And now there is light. Now there is the dawn. You guys have watched a sunrise, and you can see the light coming before the sun actually comes, right? You can see the light coming. You can see the beauty in the sky. You can see the sky coming. You think it's beautiful. But man, you cannot wait for the intensity of that sun to come. For that to shine light, to pierce the darkness. We know that darkness isn't good. To be the one who is bringing them a light who is shining. A light of knowledge, a light of truth, a light that we can walk by. We are no longer stumbling around in the dark. Do you maybe you remember that point when you said yes to Jesus and you realized that the weight of your sin has been taken care of? Can you imagine unloading that burden for just a minute and going back to that moment and thinking about that? That's what Isaiah is talking about. A light has shone. Dawn has come. The world has turned. There is something coming. There is someone coming who is going to save us. And it says, you goes on in verse 3, you have multiplied the nation. You have increased its joy. Isaiah is giving credit where credit is due here. They rejoice before you as with the joy at the harvest. I know enough farmers to know they're pretty happy when the crop is done. As they are glad when they divide the spoil. For the yoke of his burden and the staff for his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, you have broken as on the day of Midian. This is going way back to a story. Maybe you remember the book of Judges. It was the story of Gideon. Where Gideon gets 3,000 men, and it's too big, so God thins him down to 300 men, and he goes in and conquers the entire army of Midian by smashing pots, and the light shines from the pots underneath. The torches shine bright in the entire valley, and they blow the trumpets with joy and rejoicing, and the army of Midian literally destroys itself. A light has shone. He's like, this is just like that. Going back to that time where the enemy will literally turn in on itself and sin will be destroyed and the enemy will be vanquished and Satan will be defeated because of he who is coming. There's a lot of hope coming at this. So you're like, oh, Joel, we've heard this before. This is great. But we got to continue on because this isn't just for the now. This isn't just for the then. It's also for the future. As you look through this passage, I want you to pay attention to some of the tenses of the words. They're going to talk about past tense. They're going to talk about future tense. Because the way they write the Bible, it's this verb tense where it's kind of talking about the already, but the not yet. The already, but not yet. So it says a new light has shone. It's already happened. It's past tense. And they're going to write in that, but it's also yet to come. It's also yet to come because we know Jesus has not yet been born in Isaiah, but the light has shone. And the reason they write it that way is because the biblical authors are so 100% sure that this is going to happen. They write as if it already has. It has already begun, and it will continue on forever. Continue on forever. Going back to verse 5. For every boot of the trampling warrior in battle, tumult, and every garment rolled in blood will be burned as fuel for the fire. For unto us a child is born. It seems like these don't fit, right? We kind of read these passages like if I were reading this at Christmas, we'd read 2 and then we'd read 6 and 7. We'd skip 3, 4, 5. It's like, but the point of Isaiah is he's talking about this is beyond us. There is battle, there is war, there is fire, there is life, there is the world chaos. There's things going on in this world that just happen, that are not good, that are part of what is causing us sometimes to doubt. But sometimes we think, oh yeah, Jesus is born, he's great, we have salvation. Okay, now let me try to do my life right here and try to survive what I can. Think of the shift for the people who were lost, who had no light, who were walking in darkness. Think of walking around and not knowing where you are, but then being able to see. Our whole life, our perspective, the way that we view everything has been changed. It has shifted. I think back, I went, a number of years ago, I went hunting, elk hunting in the mountains, and it was kind of getting dusk, and I was walking back to camp, and I saw what I thought, I saw a black bear. And I'm like, okay, not super nervous, but I'm not necessarily going to go run up and say hi, right? So I want to make sure that I'm going around him the other direction that he is going. So I want to see. So I stop and I'm looking and I can't figure out what he's doing. And I'm looking, I'm staring, I got my binoculars and I'm trying to figure out what on earth are you doing? Where are you going? And I'm like, I got to get closer. Like, what am I doing? This is not right. Joel, what are you doing? This is dumb. And so I get closer and closer and closer, and I found out this black bear was a stump. And I'm like, well, okay, I was scared of nothing. And now every time I walk back past that stump the next few days, I was like, oh yeah, I see ya. You can't fool me again. Once I saw what it truly was, I can never unsee it. It truly affected my perspective forever. I'll never not see that as a bear again. And as we begin to see what the light has truly shown into our hearts, as what God has really done for us, as what the incarnation, Jesus coming to earth, has truly revealed in us, we can never go back to looking at the world the same way. We are incapable of it. But yet we try to live that way without letting our sight affect how we live. We need to let what we see in the world, that there are people who are still in the dark, affect how we spread the light. It's so important that people don't understand. They don't have the hope that we have. They just don't. So here we get to verse 6. For to us a child is born. To us a son is given, both light and son, as in sonship. And the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. So what's really neat about this section is the reason they list the names. Often they would list names like this back in biblical times, and this would be considered a royal naming. So if a new king would come to the throne in a kingdom, they would have this declaration, and they would have this seating or ascension where they would sit the king down, they would crown him, and they would read off this list of names. Oh, the great King Frederick, who is mighty, and he is powerful, and he is just, and he is blah, 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 blah. And here we have a baby, a son who was born in the new light that is coming, and his name, and they're literally crowning a child. That's what Isaiah is doing. He's literally giving the throne, the royal naming for all the people. Here is the introduction of the new king to the world. Not that he wasn't ruling before, but here's the new king in flesh, taking on flesh, still fully God, to the world. And Isaiah's, and here are his names. You can feel the royalness of it, right? The absolute pomp of this. And his name is Wonderful Counselor. Now the word wonderful, we think of, oh, that's great. We like the word wonderful. This is a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner that we ate too much of. But wonderful means out of the ordinary, or specifically beyond the ordinary. So for God to be wonderful is amazing. For God to be wonderful is not that God is doing more of what God usually does, because God is. How can God be more than he is? He can't be. God's always amazing. He's always wonderful. So how is he wonderful? He's wonderful to us. He's wonderful to us, to be beyond the ordinary, to be beyond what he typically is, what we would expect of maybe other gods or other things in the world. He is beyond that because God is more gracious. This is literally the definition of grace, getting what we don't deserve, because God is wonderful. And he's a wonderful counselor. I don't go all psychology on me and think of counselor as counseling. Okay, counselor, maybe you can have some elements of that in there, but counselor as, I want you to think of the person who you go to talk about life. The person who you go to unload of things because you know that they're a safe person, because you know that they're a real person, because you know that they're close. You have that relationship with them that you can talk to them and they'll tell you straight if you need to do something different, or they'll sit there and listen. That person who you will do life with, who you can share everything with. That's really your counselor. And here is God being the wonderful counselor. Here is the new king who's being crowned of the entire world, the new kingdom that is coming. Not that God, again, not that he wasn't in control, but there is a new kingdom that is going to destroy the darkness, destroy the sin, and literally change our lives and bring our hearts to eternity forever. This is the coming of Christ. This is the advent of birth. This is the advent of Jesus. This is what it means. He is the King who is a wonderful counselor to us. And you're going to see the names kind of spread out a little bit, and I think this is so neat. He's a wonderful counselor as he's close to us and he's intimate. He knows who we are. But he's also the mighty God. Almost seems like it needs no explanation, right? He is the mighty God. There isn't becoming man and he's saying, oh yeah, I'll come back to that God thing later. No. As he is fully man, he is fully God. It's a divine mystery that we love because he is still fully human in that he understands what it's like to be tempted. He understands what it's like to be human. He also takes the death upon himself that he may be the perfect sacrifice as he needs to be, but he has never left being fully God. He's still fully in control, he's still fully knowledgeable, and he's still fully powerful. Both, same time, mighty God. So here we are already, the crowning of King, the King who's close to us, the King who's our counselor, but at the same time, the King who is the mighty God who never can let anything fall, who can't. He is the one who is in control. Everlasting Father. To be everlasting. To go on and on forever. There is no end. His kingdom, as we're going to read, has no end. And he is the Father of that kingdom. As he is still the Father, as he's still God, as he's still Father of the Son, as he's still a Father who rules over us. But I think one of the most important things I picked up this year, as a Father, he is a Father who adopts us into his family. When we say yes to Jesus, we aren't just like, yep, you signed a contract. The Bible says we are adopted, that we are brought into the family of God. and he is our Father. And apart from that, we are legally bound, that we are forever his sons and daughters, that we are in the family, and we receive the inheritance, which is eternal life. And the unsearchable riches is what Ephesians tells us. That's to be a father, is to say, you are my children. You are mine. I'm reminded of Isaiah, I think it's 42, where God literally says, you are mine. I have called you by name, you're mine. Very specifically, being our Father, and not just now, but everlasting, forever and ever and ever. And here we get to the verse, Prince of Peace. We get peace. I kind of talked about that already, right? Okay, we're still burning, okay. Prince of Peace. But to be the Prince of it, why would they add that? Why would they add Prince at the very beginning of this? Why would they just throw down, he could just be the Lord of Peace or God of Peace? But he's the Prince of Peace. He's in charge of peace. He is the one who brings the peace. There is no peace apart from him. There's peace in other countries. Great. It's peace by him, because peace is from God. We can't make peace. We can think we can make peace, but we can't. Peace is from God alone, and peace, when we have peace, comes from him. He's the one that gives it to us when we need it. He's the one that has it when we are desperately in need of it. He's the one that controls it. He's the one who is peace. We're not describing God. I'm telling you who God is. And he is peace. So here we have the intimacy of a counselor, the authority of God Mighty, the powerful God Almighty, the adoption, controlling salvation of everlasting Father, and we have the Prince of Peace, who brings, that's what we get. And that's really what we're going to get when Jesus says, I will take death and I will take the sin so that you can have the peace. Peace with sin, peace with God. The fire in the house is out. And really, if we go back and look at it, we thought was in flames. God has not just extinguished, he's rebuilt. And it's even bigger. And it's even better. Because that's who Jesus is. He's the one who has come not just to extinguish sin and defeat sin, but to give us life eternal. And that's the beauty of it. So here's the neat conclusion of this. Verse 7 says, of the increase of his government. Okay, so immediately we think of government. So I want you to think less of political government and think of more as who is in charge of everything, as who governs all of creation. The one who created all of creation. The one who, Colossians says, holds it in his hand and literally by the power of who Jesus is, controls it and sustains it. That's his government. There is nothing outside of his sight. There's nothing outside of his power. There's nothing outside of his providential hand. There's nothing. Of the increase. It's not just his government. God's already ultimately in control. And it says of the increase of his government. And the increase of his peace. It's not that there's just going to be a good government. It's not that there's just going to be peace. It's going to be increasing. It's going to be increasing. And this is what I think is so phenomenal. God is already ultimately in control. So what this verse is getting at is the infinite control of God's kingdom, the infinite amount of his peace will infinitely expand for infinity. Isn't that kind of cool? Okay, maybe that was my thought. I think that was cool. Of the increase of his government, his peace, there will be no end. It's never going to stop. And on the throne of David, because we know that in the line of David was Jesus, on the throne of David and over his kingdom to establish it and to uphold it with justice and righteousness from this time forth and forevermore. This is the zeal of the Lord of hosts. So the second point that I forgot to mention, Mariel, I'm sorry. I got so worked up. Is God's going to do this. 1.1 is he does it. The Advent happens because it's necessary, because we have sin and we need it. And the second thing is that it happens because God is going to receive the glory for himself. Remember 1 Peter chapter 1:12, there's a verse that says that angels long to look at it. A lot of this stuff God does because this is who God is. And this is by God doing it, he's going to receive glory for it. He's going to receive praise for it. This is just about the things that it is. The Advent happened because it's necessary, but not because God was lonely, not because he needed us, not because he just absolutely, I just can't live my life without Joel. No, he does it because he loves, because he is love. And by doing it, he's still going to be glorified in all that he does. There's never a point when he's not going to be. That's just who he is. That's just what it's about. It is the already, but the not yet. Already this has happened. Already Jesus has come. Already Jesus has become. And this is the beauty of Advent, is that we have already seen the actual birth of Jesus in the Bible. And it's already been another 1,000, 2,000 years since then. But the incarnation, the event of that, still plays a role in us today. It still affects who I am. It still affects how I view the world. It still affects that I don't see darkness, but I see something different through the vision that Jesus has given me. I see the kingdom of God going out into the world, not just me surviving the world. I see people in darkness who don't have hope and don't have the same hope that I have. It drives who I am. It changes everything. It continues to be a part of my life every single day, because that's how important it is. It changes everything. It changed all things for all time. And we will continue to look at that next week as we talk about the hope of Advent. I'm reminded of a verse, 2 Corinthians 5. It says, "He who became sin, who knew no sin, so that we might become the righteousness of God." And that starts here. In Christmas glory, the coming, the birth of God himself for us to seek and to save us, because without him, we're nothing. We're sunk. We're dead. We're lost. Praise be to God who found us and calls us his own and redeems us to a kingdom forevermore. Have a great Sunday, guys. Call with questions.